And if you're wondering about the M3 Mac Pro, I'm trying to get my models in order here, or the Mac Studio. So the Mac Studio is still running the M2 Max. We had a really interesting thread by Max Tech. Dude, especially Vadim from Max Tech, the YouTubers, Max Tech, their channel's great, obviously. I really love it a lot because they're the ones that do like the best technical dive-ins to all Apple's products that I've seen. But Vadim has been getting down into the weeds on like the tech specs and like the silicon design and stuff. I'm like, dude, this is getting bonkers. Well, I don't know where he got this information. Maybe he was just like visually inspecting the dies for M3 or something. I don't even know where he came up with this, but he had a Twitter thread this week that kind of blew up. And the headline was essentially a redesign of the Apple M3 processor could give it a huge, massive performance boost. Now, for those of you that know why I sold my M1 Ultra Mac Studio, it's because it was supposed to be, well, it is two M1 Max chips fused together. Same with the M2 version of the Ultra. And I was expecting to get double the performance. But I didn't get anywhere close to that. Like, I probably got maybe 30 to 40% better performance with the M1 Ultra. And I was like, well, what the hell? This thing's literally twice the cost. If I'm not going to get twice the performance, then this is definitely not worth it for me. For some of you, it might be, but it wasn't for me. And I forget the name of this part. Let's see here.
The interposer.
The interposer? Are you sure? Did you just make that up?
No, that's what it's called.
Ultra Fusion Interconnect.
The interconnect. The Ultra Fusion You're an interposer.
They all sound like Star Trek props.
I just watched that bit of the keynote the other day. I guess I got it confused.
Yeah, that's right. Well, so from what I understand, because this gets to be very technical, the interconnect was what connected the two dies together where the M1 Max and also the M2 Max chips lived. And it was like a huge bottleneck. I think that's the way it worked. And up until M2 Ultra, the Ultra chips are basically just two of the M Max, or the M Max versions bolted together. But in the M3 Ultra, it seems like that is not the way that Apple is going to go, which was kind of like the crux of Vadim's thread. He was saying, hey, previously to this is the way Apple's done things, but now they're designing the M series Ultra chips to be their own independent chips, which means all bets are off. So they'll be able to do more performance cores. They might be able to reduce or eliminate any of the efficiency cores, because like if you're running like a Mac Pro or a Mac Studio, like you really don't need the efficiency cores, do you? I mean, the only reason you would need them is because you want to save power. And if you're buying a machine for performance, you don't really necessarily care or prioritize saving power. I'm looking for the Twitter thread here as I talk about this slowly. So that, here we go. No one vamps like me when I'm looking for a solution. It's just slow and disconnected. Here we go. So this is Vadim's thread. I'm not going to read all this because it dives into great detail, but I'll link this in the show notes in case any of you are interested in reading more about this. I think like the TLDR is the next M3 Mac Studio with the Ultra Series M3 or the Mac Pro could have a huge performance increase because that interconnect has been a bottleneck, and now Apple is redesigning it in such a way where they could greatly expand the performance cores, reduce any of the efficiency cores. They could add more cores, so it doesn't have to just be a doubling of what the M Max series chicks offer. I'm sticking with it. The M Max chicks. And so it could be like a massive powerhouse of a chip. Now, I think a lot of like his conclusions are basically just him doing analysis, which he tends to be pretty good at. So some of this stuff may not end up coming to fruition. But these chips could, and the updated Mac Studio could debut at WWDC. That is a possibility. I think maybe it was Gurman that said that wasn't going to happen. I can't recall.
Yeah, Gurman said that they would be coming at the end of the year instead, if they were coming this year at all.
Okay, which, I mean, the Mac Studio doesn't get updated every year to my recollection, so that seems like it might pass the sniff test, but it could. And so if you're waiting for the Mac Studio of your dreams and you're waiting for the M3 Max, or the M3 Ultra, it might be worth waiting for. Now, we haven't even gotten the M3 Max series chips in the Mac Studio yet, so they might even skip the M3 generation and go straight to the M4. Who knows? There are a lot of M2 Mac Studios available on sale on Apple's website for refurbished prices. Although Apple's playing games on their refurbished site. I don't know if we talked about this in a previous episode. I don't know if y'all have noticed this, but they don't always offer discounts on their Mac Studios. Or if they do, like they're very small, like $20, $30, $40. And then they offer them almost at full price. And I don't know why they do this. I haven't seen another machine where they do this on. But occasionally when you go look, the Mac Studio chips or the Mac Studio Macs are not discounted, which is very odd. So make sure
but not discounted.
Refurbished, but barely discounted. Like you might get like a $40 discount, which I think is very weird. And
odd.
I don't know if I'm missing something, but I've checked multiple times and I've seen that. And we even talked about it on a past show. And I was like, wait a second, like they're selling an M1 Max or an M1 Ultra Mac Studio, and it's almost the same as retail price. Like, why would you buy one of these ever when you can spend almost the same amount and get an M2 Ultra brand new? So anyway, it doesn't make any sense. That being said, if you are buying refurbished, just make sure you're getting a discount because they don't always make it obvious. Don't get yourself a full price M1 Ultra Mac Studio, and then cry into your arm wishing that we had warned you. Yeah.
I have a few more points before we move on here.
Please.
First of all, I checked the Apple newsroom, and in announcing the M1 Ultra, they do describe it as a silicon interposer that connects the chips.
Okay.
Just clarifying that. Also, the M3 Max, the M3 Ultra being a bespoke chip rather than two M3 Max chips wouldn't actually be the first time in the M3 generation that something like that has happened. In the M1 and the M2 generations, the Pro level chip was actually just a Max chip that had been reduced in core count or chopped off a little bit.
Yeah.
Whereas in the M3 generation, the M3 Pro is actually also a bespokely designed chip. So it sounds like for the M3 generation, this would be a pattern where they're not really, starting with the Max die and either doubling it or chopping it down. Every single chip in the Max in the M3 generation is its own design, which is kind of interesting.
I didn't realize that. I thought the Pro was just a nerfed version of the Max chip, and they just deactivated
typically
some of
has
the
been,
cores.
but not
right.
but not so with the M3 Pro.
Interesting. Okay. I'm not totally sure how I feel about this.
Which is why the Pro chip is kind of the M3 Pro chip is, as you were saying earlier when the MacBook Pros came out, kind of
majorly nerfed.
Yeah, a little closer to the M3 rather than being an M3 Max that's been a little bit reduced.
Yeah, I wouldn't even consider the Pro level chips. I mean, they reduced the core counts, especially for the GPU, by such a degree where I'm like, it actually makes more sense, I think, to buy a refurbished M2 Max. Now, you do get a lot of efficiency gains, but I don't think those efficiency gains in the M3 generation make up for the reduced amount of cores, especially if you're doing GPU heavy work. No one cares about this. Let's move on.
My head is spinning. Spinning.
Like, this is what I feel like when I'm reading Vadim's tweets. Sometimes I'm like, I read what you wrote. I read it through 2 or 3 times. I still don't even know what you're talking about. So I'm gonna have to get out a magnifying glass and do that grandma meme where I tilt my spectacles forward and try to figure out what you're even saying.